Hi, my name is Karen and I'm going to show you some basics about needle felting to get you started. So first of all, what kind of equipment will you need? Well, you need needle felting needles, and if you can see this one, I'll hold that up to there. It's a needle with some barbs on the end, and they come in various different sizes, and you use this to stab the wool and open up the scales on the wool in order to make it felt. Some people put them in a holder. This is just like a little hand holder where you can put the needle and use it like that. You can also get hold of a 3 needle version on Amazon, but it's not necessary, or a 5 version with a guard over the top. But basically, to start, all you need is 1 or 2 needles. You probably need a 36 triangle, as they're called, and possibly a 38 triangle. If you need to know where to get needles, I would recommend needlefelt.com. They're brilliant for needles, and you can get them in all sizes, and they actually put colours on the top so that you know what size you're actually using. Right, so you need a foam pad. Just any foam pad will do. If you don't have any of that, and if you're caught in lockdown and you can't get hold of things, you could actually use just a small sponge, bathroom sponge, etc., or some sort of other piece of packing foam. But if you can do, get hold of a decent thick sponge. Some people use a felting brush, and this is quite good, but you certainly don't need this as a beginner. So with a beginner, you need something to felt on, you need your needles, and you need some wool. The wool will come in various sorts, various types. If you're looking for something on the internet and you want the very first kind of wool, then look for either carded bat or carded slivers, maybe Shetland or Corriedale or Pentland wool, a coarser kind of wool. If you see wool that's called merino tops, these are much longer skeins of wool, and I might have one handy here. Yeah, merino tops, and these are all much fluffier and softer. They're great for wet felting and picture felting. You can needle felt with them, but it's much more difficult, and it certainly makes it much more time intensive. All the wool on a merino top will all be in the same direction, in lengthwise rather than crisscross. If you get a carded bat or a carded sliver, then you're able to actually find that the wool is already crisscrossed, and therefore it holds together better, and it's much more resilient when you're trying to felt. So you get your piece of wool. If you're trying to make a simple shape like a body or a head or something for an animal, then you need to get it felted tight. And first of all, you need to roll it. So you need to get it as tightly together as possible and roll it into a shape. If you're used to rolling something like a fajita, then it's exactly the same. Fold in the corners, roll it as tightly as you can to felt in your initial shape. And then when you've got it as tight as you can like that, you use your needle, which you can just hold in between your fingers, and just tap it in order to hold it in place. And that will stop it rolling out. And then you're poised then to take the item and continue stabbing and stabbing away until you actually get to a much firmer. If you look at these two, that shows you the before and the after. They're slightly different shades of wool, and all you have to do is completely stab away with the thicker of your needles. And I'm using a red from Heidi Feathers, or you could use a green one from Heidi Feathers, and they're triangular needles, and they work really well. And be careful of your fingers, the barbs are quite sharp and you don't want to hurt yourself. And keep stabbing away and stabbing away. If you want to order a triple needle, it's quite useful. It just means you've got 3 needles going in at the same time, slightly easier to hold, and it will be a bit faster. But if you're a beginner, you don't need to. And another little tip, if you want to get 1 or 2 needles together, possibly even 3, if you put the 3 all together facing out, you can put an elastic band around that and actually use the 3 needles and use them together like that. And that's no different to what's in the 3 holder, you're just not paying for the holder. To stab, you need to make sure your needle goes down in the same direction all the time. If you push it in and pull it out at a slightly different angle, then it's going to bend, and they will bend and eventually they will break. So you do need a reasonable supply. You need 3 or 4 needles to get you started in case you have some that break, and then you can keep continuing to needle felt in. Now, different thicknesses, different sort of stabbing techniques, you'll end up with either a soft felting or a hard felting. If you're going to make a structure like, say, a little cat, something like that, then you're going to need quite a hard felt, because you want to actually keep stabbing it till it's very, very firm, so that you can then mould as you're going around the shapes. If you want something very soft and fluffy, then you won't have to stab it quite so long. But this, you'll tend to learn this as you go along. You find that people start off quite softly, and then they actually get much firmer at it than as they go along. A really good starter project is to look at felting something like my little pumpkin here. It's my very first item I felted with my friend Zoe, and I firmly felted that into solid, and now I can poke all my needles into it. And I've also made a little top, a little stalk, and that was a great starter project because pumpkins come in all various shapes, so there is no failure. Basically, whatever shape you come out with, it's a pumpkin. You mustn't worry about what other people think of your felting. You just need to be happy with it, and you need to enjoy it. So you can keep stabbing, keep going in and out. This is my first video online, so if it's not very good, apologies, they will probably get better as I go along. You can certainly as well, you can see that coming together much, much firmer. I'm just going to hold that closer up to the screen so you can see that. And you see this one is much firmer, it's more a cylinder, and then that one's a little bit softer, and you can see slightly more fluffy around the outside. So it'll take you a little while to get sort of a firm sort of shape. Most body shapes for items, looking at perhaps a dog here that I did the other day, it was sort of a dachshund, I'm not quite sure if it's a dachshund, it's a bit of a mixed breed I think, he came out slightly different shape. You should really look at the shapes that you're doing. You want either a long sausage or an oblong or an egg shape, or if you look at just the head, it's just a round ball with a snout poked on the front. Look at the shapes, look on YouTube, and also look in books. Drawing books are good when they show you how to draw animals, because they break it down into the shapes that you should be looking at to draw, and therefore you can look at putting together the shapes for the legs, etc. What I've got here is something I was doing before, and this is going to be a little teddy bear, and it's got a head and it's got a body, and I found that the length of the body was too long, so I've cut off the bottom, and then I'm just putting a little bit more wool around to seal up where I've cut that off, to make that seamless, and that's going to come together shortly, and then you'll see his body and his head. So I'm just going to pause the video. I'm going to stab away at this for a little bit longer, and then I'll start it again when I get to a point where you can see he's reached the next stage.